You could feel it before it even happened, the kind of silence that isn't empty, but loaded, heavy, almost dangerous. Because this wasn't just another royal cancellation. This was a pattern snapping into focus, a final move in a game that suddenly feels very, very real. Meghan Markle didn't just skip the UK trip, she detonated expectations. And what Prince Harry did next? That's the part nobody is talking about, but it might be the only part that actually matters.
Breaking news, insiders. It has been announced that Meghan, Lily and Archie will not join Prince Harry when he is in London next week.
Be honest, chums, did anybody absolutely believe that this could have possibly have happened other than Harry?
I believe Meghan is trying to break him. She believes if she's a widow before William is king, she'll have the title of Princess Henry forever. It's this kind of stinking thinking that makes her so dangerous.
Growing calls for Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to keep Archie and Lily away from Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis at all costs.
It's very easy to manipulate a drug addict or an alcoholic, especially if you share some of their habits and practices. It's very easy. Just encourage them on the road to perdition and watch and wait while they destroy themselves.
Harry and Meghan have been warned that it is over. They have been warned. Did their royal exit brand finally run out of time? I'm going to explain to you, yes, it did. It ran out of time spectacularly.
Everyone saw the headlines. Everyone shrugged like they'd seen this movie before. Meghan staying back, the children staying back, Harry flying alone. Routine, right? Predictable, almost scripted. But here's where the story twists, because sometimes the most obvious outcome hides the biggest secret. Ask yourself honestly, did anyone truly believe she was coming this time?
Harry himself, according to my source, will be absolutely steaming that he has to now turn up alone, because again, it's another big event that he has to carry.
Exactly. The doubt wasn't just there, it was overwhelming. This annual guessing game, this will she, won't she ritual, has turned into something almost theatrical. And like all performances, the ending is known before the curtain even rises. But this time, there was a clue. A tiny detail that slipped through the cracks and exposed everything.
Nobody truly believed this apart from Harry, did he? You know, I think he felt, Meghan Markle was no intention really of coming back to the United Kingdom. Now, the story goes, right, chums, that apparently, later on in the week, she might grace us with her presence. And if you remember, this has real echoes of what happened over in Canada,
No packed bags, no signs of a family preparing for a long stay, just a light European stop, a brief appearance in Portugal, and then nothing. That's not hesitation, that's premeditation. Because if there was never any intention to go, then what exactly was the UK trip? A possibility or a carefully crafted illusion? And here's where it stops being gossip and starts feeling uncomfortable. Because sitting in Britain is a father, a king battling illness, holding on to the fragile hope of seeing grandchildren he barely knows. A hope that for weeks was allowed to grow, quietly, patiently, and then it vanishes.
Out there in Portugal, well, they didn't really have enough sort of things with them to make sure it was going to be a long stay visit. This apparently was just going to be a European jaunt, a trek and then go back and then come back from there over to here to the United Kingdom.
Just like that, at the last possible moment. And if you've ever waited for a call that never came, you already understand the emotional weight of that silence.
Harry and Meghan decided that they felt they wanted to utilize this as a sort of dangler to His Majesty the King. How about a reunion? Finally getting to meet and connect with your grandchildren. There are other problems around that because His Majesty the King, as you know, still in the throes of battling a certain illness, cannot do with stress, cannot do with blood pressure.
But behind that silence, noise, negotiations, demands, conditions that reportedly turned what should have been a family visit into something far more transactional. Because suddenly it wasn't about reconnecting, it was about terms, specific ones. Frogmore Cottage, security guarantees, control over the environment. And that's where things start to unravel in the most fascinating way. Because wasn't Frogmore once described as inadequate, too small, restrictive, a symbol of discomfort? Yet now now it reappears not as a compromise, but as a necessity. That contradiction alone raised eyebrows. But then came the next request, and this is where even seasoned observers couldn't help but laugh.
What rug? The only rug under the Sussexes is a flying carpet on which the two of them circle the globe in a cloud of persistent delusion.
Helicopters, royal helicopters. For a couple who have publicly criticized excess, who stepped away from royal privileges, who positioned themselves as independent, this request didn't just clash, it collided. Add to that the demand for police escorts, full-scale royal treatment, and suddenly the picture becomes clearer. This wasn't a visit, this was a negotiation for status.
Markle was insistent that the only place that she would now feel very secure inside palace walls, the monarchy, whatever you want to call it, would be to be able to, well, now stay in the empty property that is Frogmore Cottage. Surely too many terrible memories there of your passport being taken away, trapped, your car keys, but no, she's overcome that, right?
And then came the response. Cold, direct, final. Not from the palace as a whole, but from one man.
Harry and Meghan were totally able to get a private jet from one of their friends. They love a private jet. No easy jet for that billionaire-loving couple. They could have got a private jet where they would have been met off the tarmac by a chauffeur.
No entry, no compromise, no access, not Windsor, not the estate, nothing, a line drawn so sharply it almost echoed. And for a moment, everything becomes still, because this wasn't protocol, this was personal. Now pause and consider what that means. This isn't just about logistics, this is about memory, about words spoken publicly, about trust fractured so deeply that even proximity becomes impossible. And when that kind of boundary is set, it rarely gets reversed. But then comes Harry's reaction, and this is where the tension spikes again. Because instead of retreat, instead of silence, there's escalation. A security report, claims of danger, threat narratives that suddenly raise the stakes. But even here, something feels off. Because the report wasn't government issued. It wasn't independently verified. It was commissioned privately, paid for, controlled, and according to experts who've seen similar strategies before. That changes everything. Because when you control the narrative, you control the fear. And yet, reality doesn't always cooperate. Because the same man who claims extreme risk has been seen moving quietly through London without incident. No chaos, no exposure, just normal movement unnoticed. So the question lingers, how real is the threat? And more importantly, how much of it is perception? Because beneath all of this, beneath the cancellations, the demands, the reports, there's a deeper shift happening. One that's harder to see, but impossible to ignore. The shift from conflict to something colder, something quieter, something far more final. And if you're paying attention, you can already feel it. Because this isn't just a story about a missed trip anymore. It's about a door that may have already closed. And the terrifying part, nobody's knocking anymore. And this is where the story turns from dramatic to quietly devastating. Because while the headlines keep screaming about security, canceled plans, and public statements, something far more dangerous has been unfolding in the background, something almost invisible unless you know exactly where to look. The noise is still there, yes, but behind it, silence. And not the kind that waits to be broken, the kind that replaces everything. Because insiders are no longer describing this as a feud, not even a conflict. The word being whispered now is colder, more final. A cold war, not explosive, not loud, just distant, controlled, calculated, and once a family reaches that stage, something fundamental changes. Anger means there's still emotion. Silence means there isn't. Think about the details that slip through almost unnoticed. A major family wedding, one that once would have been unthinkable to miss, and yet no invitation, not even a token gesture. This isn't oversight, this is erasure. Because when someone who once stood beside you during your darkest moment is no longer part of your present, that isn't distance, that's detachment. And the most chilling part, it's not mutual. Because while one side appears to have emotionally stepped away, the other hasn't. Reports suggest Harry still feels the pull, still feels the absence, still feels the loss of something that cannot be recreated anywhere else. Because there's only one person on earth who understands what it meant to be Diana's son in that world. And that connection, it doesn't disappear easily, but it can be cut off. And when it is, the damage doesn't look loud. It looks quiet, controlled, almost peaceful. But underneath, it's permanent. Then comes another layer, one that raises even more questions. Because beyond the distance, beyond the silence, there are attempts. Reaching out, offering involvement, even suggesting roles in the lives of the next generation. And on paper, it might sound reasonable. Experience being passed down, lessons shared. But context changes everything. Because when trust is fractured, even help can can feel like intrusion, and that's exactly how it's being received. So the doors stay closed, firmly, repeatedly, not out of impulse, but out of decision. Meanwhile, outside those closed doors, the narrative keeps shifting. Public perception isn't just reacting anymore, it's evolving. People are starting to ask a different question. Not what happened in the past, but what exists now. Because after the interviews, the documentaries, the statements, what remains? Identity without institution, visibility without structure, influence without foundation. And that question becomes even sharper when placed next to what's happening on the other side. Quiet appearances, minimal security, no spectacle, just presence, just consistency. And whether intentional or not, the contrast is impossible to ignore. One side amplifies, the other absorbs. One side demands, the other delivers. And perception follows patterns. Then comes the part nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone is starting to think. Because if the separation continues, if the distance grows, the silence becomes permanent, what happens next? Titles come into question. Roles get redefined. And conversations once considered extreme suddenly enter the mainstream, not as speculation, but as possibility. And right at the center of all of this is a father, a king, a man dealing with time in a way no headline can fully capture. Because beyond the politics, beyond the optics, beyond the strategy, there's something painfully human happening. The desire to reconcile, to reconnect, to repair something before it's too late. But reconciliation requires access. It requires presence. It requires moments that are now being replaced by cancellations, conditions, and distance. And that's the real story hiding beneath everything else. Because this was never just about a skip trip. It was about what that trip represented. A chance, a window, a moment that could have shifted everything. And now it's gone. Harry arrives. Alone again, but this time it feels different. Because the silence waiting for him isn't temporary anymore. It's settled, established, almost accepted. And somewhere behind palace walls, behind closed conversations and unspoken decisions, a single realization is beginning to take shape. Not everything that breaks gets rebuilt. Some things just stop. And the most unsettling part of all, this story doesn't feel like it's ending. It feels like it's finally revealing what it was all along.